Hey, everybody, welcome to tonight's webinar. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes to let everyone get a chance to sign on at 5:30, and we'll start just a minute or two after the 5:30 mark. We'll start in just 1 minute, everyone. Looks like there's still some people logging in. So 60 seconds and we'll kick things off. All right, for the essence of time, let's get things moving. So tonight we're going to talk about investing in real estate. We'll do a particular focus on 2 to 4 unit investing, but this really goes to just about any other type of property you might invest in: a single family home, 5 unit, 10 unit, 20 units, 100 units. We'll cover a lot of things real estate investing tonight. And I also encourage you all to sign up for our continuous webinars. In about 2 weeks, we'll be doing another webinar with an update on the real estate market and economy here in San Diego. So without further ado, let's take a look at what we're going to be covering tonight. This is really just an index of all the various items we'll be going through. We'll start out with an introduction on who we are, who am I, who's my team. We'll do a quick introduction before going into a series of case studies. The first case study is going to be on real estate financials. I've always found that one of the best ways to teach and convey information is by looking at real world examples. So case study 1 is going to be a real world example on evaluating the investment return on a 2 to 4 unit property. Then we'll roll into case study 2, which is going to be another real world example on zoning and how you as a consumer out there can take advantage of a property zoning by having knowledge that really most in the industry, including most realtors, aren't aware of. So we'll do an in-depth dive on the zoning regulations in San Diego before we get to case study number 3, in which we'll talk about a 1031 exchange and a few other tax code regulations that make real estate investing even more powerful as far as taxes go and tax savings than a 401k or a Roth IRA. At the end of the day, 401k, IRAs, 403bs, all those retirement accounts are great and they're amazing ways to save money through tax-free and tax-deferred means. But truth be told, real estate has far more tax advantages than even the best structured retirement account. So we'll talk about some of those tax advantages. And then we'll end it out with which fourplex would you buy? And we'll show you again another real world example of a fourplex that was sold. And we'll show you the do's and the don'ts of selling an investment property for those of you that are on right now and maybe you're not looking to buy, but you're looking to sell investment property. We'll close it all out tonight with Q&A. So if you have any questions that come up throughout tonight's presentation, please type those into the chat. And before I log off this evening, I'll make sure I go through everyone's question and answer anything that pops up in the chat. But rather than answering questions as we go, we'll get to all the questions at the end because some of them might actually get answered before we even get to the end. So quick background, who am I? My name is Patrick Kappel, born and raised in the Midwest, came out here through the Navy, like a lot of folks do, come out to San Diego with the military. I've been living in San Diego now for 14 years. And for 13 of those 14, I've been involved in the San Diego real estate market. Started out like a lot of you, just buying my first property. It was a little condo in Bonita. And then I did a deployment to the Middle East, came back, and I bought my second condo in Little Italy, and I kept the first one. Did another deployment, came back, and I bought my third property, a house. And by that point, I realized, hey, I'm not just a guy in the Navy, I'm also a real estate investor. And I kept on buying San Diego real estate year after year after year, never sold any of it. Just kept buying it. And now my wife and I, we own 8 properties here in San Diego. And I thought to myself, if a poor kid out of North Dakota can do this, why can't anyone? So that's what got me to transition out of active duty into the Navy Reserves. I've been in the Navy now 21 years, 11 years active, 10 years in the reserves. And I built a profession out of helping people like you get into real estate investment and ownership. If you don't have a house, or if you're renting where you live, hopefully all of you are living somewhere. If you're renting where you live, the first thing you should buy is a house, a condo, a duplex, a townhome, something you live in. And then a lot of our clients, after buying that first property that they live in, they call us a year later and say, can you help me buy a duplex? Can you help me buy a fourplex? And a lot of our clients come back and they just keep on buying. But the first thing you got to buy is a house you live in. Along with working in brokerage and helping people like you buy and sell, I'm also a board member on the Southern California Apartment Association Legislative Steering Committee, just to keep an ear to the ground for what's going on in the legislature side of real estate. My team, 16 of us actually, myself and 15 others, we have sold 150 units just in the last year, probably a little bit above that by now, and just over 100 million in real estate in the last 12 months. We've gone on pace now. We're selling about $10 million in real estate every single month within our team. So we're really in tune to the market, what's going on, and the agents on the team are really good agents because we do a lot of business. And when you do a lot of something, you tend to just get pretty good at it. Education, you see there in the middle, went to the Naval Academy, followed that up with an MBA from UCLA. Big focus in finance and real estate while I was there. And then I followed that up with a second master's degree in real estate here at USD. So all that education, if it taught me anything, it taught me that you need to share education and you need to teach others. And that's why when I got into real estate brokerage, I decided, hey, I'm not going to focus on the sales aspect of real estate brokerage, but instead focus on the educational aspect of it. And if there's one thing I pride myself in, it's that our team really takes an educational approach with every single client we work with, not a sales approach, which you see quite often in Southern California real estate. We're more of the educational team to help our clients make their purchases and their sales with their eyes wide open so you know what you're doing. And with that approach has led to a bunch of awards for myself and my team. You see there, San Diego Realtor of the Year, 2000, this last year. Platinum team, we're in the top 1% of San Diego for sure at 10 million a month. And 40 under 40, myself and a few others on the team have actually earned that with the Union Tribune. And we're also nationally ranked. Our team is ranked in the top 1.5% of all real estate teams in the United States now. And it's cool that we're also with the #1 brokerage in San Diego, Compass. So put that out there so you know who we are and you know where a lot of this information is coming from. If any of you are interested in working with us after tonight's webinar, here's the best way to get a hold of me. My email on the top is typically the easiest way to get a hold of me, patrick.kappel@compass.com. Check email every day. But you also got my phone number up there. And Instagram, Facebook, and online, I recommend following us because we're always posting when our next webinar is going to be. And almost every day, every other day. We're posting little tidbits of information on our Facebook, on our Instagram about what's going on in the market. We'd be happy to work with any of you that think we could earn your business based on the information we share. So with that, let's get into the information, the knowledge, which you all came here today to learn about. Because at the end of the day, knowledge empowers you. In fact, at the Naval Academy, I remember on the logo of the Naval Academy seal, it says in Latin, through knowledge, see power. And if there's one thing you've learned since you're a little kid, is knowledge is power. And it certainly is in real estate. And by the time we're done with the next 50 minutes here, you're going to have more knowledge than just about every other seller and buyer out there in the marketplace. And I'm also telling you, you're going to have more knowledge than a lot of the realtors out there in the marketplace. And that's going to give you power to go out there and find the best deals and avoid the bad deals. So let's start out with case study number 1, which was a really good deal. This is actually a property that I bought myself. My wife and I bought this in 2007. The address, as you can see up here, is 1866-1868 Westinghouse Street. So this is a duplex, and the realtor listed it on the market at a range $699 to $649, top range. Now, before I get into anything else, let me tell you all, I would have bought this property for $800,000 all day long. You might wonder, why would I buy it for $800,000 if it's listed $699 to $649? Because it's worth $800,000. The financials tell us it's worth $800,000. The realtor that listed this property didn't know how to do real estate investment math. And how do we know that so clearly? Because down here in the bottom left on an MLS sheet, you're going to see all of the math for real estate financials. And I will be the first to tell you that 9 out of 10, 90% of the 2 to 4 unit properties on the MLS, the real estate financials are either blank or they're wrong. So what does that mean? 10% of the time it's right, 90% of the time it's blank or it's wrong, which creates a huge opportunity for buyers like you to go out there and find mistakes and capitalize on other people's mistakes. I always say there's like a blue collared way of making money and a white collared way. And the blue collared in real estate is door knocking and sending out 10,000 letters in the mail saying you want to buy something off market, whatever. That's a blue collared way. That's like digging a ditch in real estate. The white collared way is just find other people's mistakes. You can just sit at your computer, find mistakes all day long. So let's see what the mistake was on this one. Again, I circled it. So real estate financials are all blank. They didn't put in the gross rent multiplier, blank. Net operating income projected, blank. Annual expenses projected, blank. Just a lot of blanks down here, which tell me it's a typical residential agent that doesn't know what they're doing with investment calculations. So let's take a step back. We're going to go back to that case study. We are in about 5 minutes. But first, let's look at some basic financial calculations that you need to know, or your realtor needs to know if you're investing in real estate. And we're going to start out with something called cap rate. Okay, cap rate, which is short for capitalization rate. How do you calculate that? We're going to use an example of a little tiny home that rents for $750 a month. Now, there's no home in San Diego that rents for $750 a month. You and I know that. Maybe if you go back to like my home state of North Dakota, you can find a home in the middle of nowhere for $750 a month. But let's just use easy, small numbers for easy math to teach the concept of how do you calculate these numbers. So $750 a month times 12 months a year will give you $9,000 a year. That is your revenue. That's your really gross income for the year based on the rent. But as you all know, you have revenue, you also have expenses. Expenses might be things like property management, maintenance, taxes, insurance. Once you subtract all these expenses from your gross income, you end up with a new number called your net income. Net is just the money you're left over with after the gross is subtracted from that, your expenses, net income. Now you take that net income, also known as NOI, net operating income, and you divide that by the purchase price. And in this case, let's say it's a little home in Podunk, North Dakota. So $40,000. So you divide the net operating income by $40,000 and you get decimal 157. And as you remember from sixth grade math, if you move the decimal 2 places to the right, you now get the percentage. So it's a 15.7% cap rate. Again, that's short for capitalization rate. That is really what your return, your cash return would be if you bought this property all cash without a loan. To be clear, though, there's really not a 15.7% cap rate in the United States of America. In the United States, you'll find cap rates ranging anywhere from 1% to maybe 7 to 8%. Rarely are they going to be above that. Because in most markets in America, when you take your cap rate plus your appreciation rate, you're going to get a number that looks like 9% plus or minus 1%. There's a lot of real estate and economics behind the reasons for that, but just kind of push the I believe button for now. Can't go that deep into it on a 60-minute webinar, but your cap rate plus appreciation rate in most markets is going to be around 9%. So in San Diego, we have a very balanced market when it comes to cap rate and appreciation. On average, and when I say average, I mean 50-year average, our rate of appreciation is around 4.5%. Of course, we've appreciated a lot more in the last 12 months, but our 50-year average, about 4.5%, and our cap rates are around 4.5%. Yeah, those you get 9. Markets that have high cap rates often have low appreciation rates. Markets that have high appreciation rates often have low cap rates. So this is how you calculate a cap rate. Now, it's often said, hey, a high cap rate is great, right? Like, let's say we got 2 homes, home A and home B. And home A has an 8% cap rate, and home B has a 13% cap rate. You might think that's more favorable. Well, if you're just looking at cap rate, yes. However, and this is a big however, what if this property B is in the middle of a dying ghost town where the economy's tanking, jobs are leaving, crime is skyrocketing, and the value of the homes are dropping 10% a year? Is this still a good deal? If property A is maybe a property in a good neighborhood, a good economy, jobs are growing, the city is thriving, and crime is going down, and property values are going up 10% a year. Now property A starts to look like the better property. So you can't, just like you can't judge a book by its cover, you can't judge a property by its cap rate. You need to pull back deeper layers of the onion and really investigate what's the market like here, the economy like, what's the appreciation like. That's something we cover a lot more in our other webinar that we'll do in 2 weeks. But just be aware, high cap rate doesn't just mean it's a good deal. You got to compare the other items about it as well. I wanted to show you how to calculate cap rate. Now, when you look at a property, you really want to do a deep dive. You can put together a spreadsheet like this one here. Now, I want to teach you another value indicator besides cap rate. I want to teach you something called gross rent multiplier, also known as GRM. You see it in the top right here, okay? Now, like on the last sheet I told you, higher cap rate is usually better, all other things being equal, okay? If it's it's 2 homes on the same block in the same city in the same neighborhood in the same condition, then yeah, the higher cap rate. One home is in a rough neighborhood, one is a nice neighborhood, then you got to look at things. But all things being equal, the higher the cap rate, the better, okay? Gross rent multiplier is the opposite. All things being equal, same home, same block, same neighborhood, the gross rent multiplier, the lower, the better. And let me show you why. To calculate the cap rate, as you noticed, we needed to have all of these expenses because we needed to know what is our gross income minus all of our expenses to get to our net operating income. And then we divide that net operating income, in this case, $61,500, by the property value. And that's how we got our cap rate. What if you don't have all the expenses? What if you don't know what the repairs and maintenance and sewer, electricity, and admin costs are going to be? What if all you know about a property is the list price or the purchase price? and the gross rental income that you expect to get. And that's all you know. Then you can calculate something called the gross rent multiplier. So put on your thinking caps. What's 1.3 million divided by 100,000? This is a really easy math equation, guys. It's like fifth grade now. But 1.3 million divided by 100K goes into it 13 times is 13. So your gross rent multiplier is 13. So what does that tell you? Gross rent multiplier is just how many times does your gross annual rent go into the purchase price? 13 in this case. Now let's say the property still costs 1.3 million. But instead of getting 100K in rents this year, you're going to get 130K in rents this year. More in rent, that's a good thing, right? What's 130K divided into 1.3 million? Again, pretty easy math. It's 10. So now if you get 130K in rent, divide 1.3 million, gross rent multiplier is 10. You see 10 is a lower number than 13. And that's where I go back to the lower the GRM, the better. All other things being equal. The higher the cap rate, the better. All other things being equal. The way I remembered that when I started learning real estate finance was sports, the game of golf. The game of golf begins with a G. The lower the score in golf, the better. GRM begins with a G. The lower the GRM, the better. But again, all other things being equal, same neighborhoods and whatnot. So that's your two basic value indicators for investment real estate. Cap rate, GRM. Doesn't get any more complex than multiplication and division. Easy day, no calculus, no statistics. So what can we do as real estate professionals to find the good deals and also identify the bad deals you don't want to buy, separate the wheat from the chaff? Here is an example of a spreadsheet that my team and I put together a couple of years together, actually, for North Park. We looked at a bunch of property on the market. We looked at, hey, what's the list price, square footage, how many units, how many are 1-bedroom units, 2 beds, and 3-bed units, and what are the current rents? What are the pro forma rents? I want to show you something really interesting. Look at this property on Swift Avenue, and you see it's got one-bedroom unit rented for $800, but the pro forma rent, in other words, the projected rent, the market rent, is actually $1,500 for that unit. So they're renting it way below market value, and there's things you can do to bump the rents up to market value. It's also got a 2-bedroom unit that is also rented below market value, $1,395, and market value is $1,800. And it had a 3-bedroom unit rented below market value, $1,495, and it should be $2,700. In real estate finance, there's a term for that, loss to lease. Loss to lease, because the owner is really losing money because of their lease, because their leases aren't up at market rent. So a savvy investor comes in, buys a property, starts bumping those rents up year over year to get them up to market rent. And what we can see over here, auto-calculated for us, is the current cap rate for this one on Swift is 3.2%. But the pro forma, the projected cap rate, is 5.2%. And when we look at all these properties that were listed at this time, this is about 4 or 5 years ago, and we see that all the properties are being sold with a cap rate that averages about 3.5%. That's the average down here. 3.5% on actuals, 4.3% on pro forma, projected. And this one on Swift had a projected cap rate of 5.2, which blows all the other properties out of the water. It's the highest cap rate projected there is amongst these, 8 different properties. Now, your novice investor would look at all these and say, hey, 3.2, that's one of the lowest cap rates amongst all these properties for sale. I'm not going to buy it. But your experienced investor is going to say, yeah, but I can bump all these rents, get them to market rent, get a 5.2 cap rate, and have the best deal in all of North Park. So this is the type of data that you really need to look into. And as I like to say, peel back the layers of the onion when you're researching properties and what's the better investment, what's the worst investment. And you can also see here too, the GRM. was one of the highest at 20.3. But when you bump the rents up, you get one of the lowest gross rent multipliers, 12.5. Remember, GRM, the lower, the better. So this is just really basic financials for real estate investment. And we covered it in like 15 minutes. So we can get back to the case studies. So I don't expect anyone to be an expert at this, but this was just a 15-minute overview to let you know what's cap rate, what's gross rent multiplier, and to let you know that if you're going to be dealing in 2 to 4 units, or if a realtor is going to be dealing in 2 to 4 units, you need to know this stuff. And if you don't, it's kind of like you're walking in the dark around a bunch of like dangerous cliff edges with the blinders on. You're not going to see what you're really doing. So again, this helps us separate the wheat from the chaff, the 5.2 cap rate versus that 3.55. Sometimes though, you can find these mistakes and you don't have to do that much math. You just got to understand the market. So when I saw this property hit the market, I said, holy cow, this is a great deal. I would buy it for $800,000. I don't know why they listed it for $749, but who cares? Let's jump on it. And why did I say that? Because these rents I knew were way too low. And I didn't have to worry about raising rents on anyone or kicking out tenants because both units were vacant. The property was completely renovated and it was on the MLS. Both units are vacant. And the realtor selling this property, unfortunately, like a lot of realtors, didn't understand the rental market because he probably, like most realtors, mainly just does single family homes. And he didn't understand that 3-bed, 1-bath units, completely renovated in Linda Vista with front yards and backyards and driveways, they're not going to rent for $19.50 a unit, my friends. They're going to rent for a lot more. They're going to rent for closer to $2,500 per unit per month, nearly a 33% increase. So as I mentioned over here, again, based on advertised rental rates, I would have probably only paid $700K. If this property really would only rent for $19.50 a month, there's no way I would have bought it. And if I did, I would have only paid $700K. But my team and I, we work in investments all day long. We do a lot of 2 to 4s, probably more than any other team in San Diego County. We know what a 3-bed and 1-bath would rent for in Linda Vista. We know it's going to be $2,500. And when you're going to get $5,000 a month total off this one duplex, you'd pay $800K for this all day long. So I bought it. I ended up buying it for $728,000, way less than I would have bought it for. The seller left a lot of money on the table. The seller probably could have netted another $75,000 to $100,000 if this property was marketed correctly, and if the financials were filled out, and if the realtor would have put in the accurate rents, but they didn't. So lucky day for me, saved about $100K and was able to snatch it up. So again, as a buyer, you can use this information to your advantage by just knowing where to look on the financials. And did they put in low, accidentally, did they put in low rents? And can you take advantage of that? If you're a seller out there, just make sure you hire a realtor when you're selling a duplex that sells a lot of duplexes. Otherwise, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table. I see this happen all the time, guys. There's a lot of what we call discount brokers out there, discount realtors. They'll come in and they'll say, hey, yeah, I'll do this for 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever. And I see all the time that happen. And I see consumers like you leave $50,000 on the table, $75,000 on the table, $100,000 on the table, because you thought you're saving 1%. I see it all the time. And there's a saying, it's don't step over pounds to get to pennies. Don't be pound foolish and penny wise. I see so many people that will just hire a cheap realtor and they lose, in this case, almost $75K. So make sure you know what you're doing and you're hiring someone who knows what they're doing, because the opportunities are all over the place out there. Over 90%, as I mentioned, of 2 to 4 units on the MLS have the financials blank or wrong. We could randomly go on the MLS right now, and I guarantee you 9 out of 10 are going to be blank or wrong. I can guarantee that because many times I've randomly gone on the MLS and I've seen the mistakes. Now on this one, this is a Chula Vista duplex, a 1-bed and a 2-bed unit. They put in the actual rents, good job. They put in the projected rents, great job. They put in the deposit, love them. I also like the fact that this realtor filled out the financials. You know, they gave it the good old college try, you could say. They filled it out. The problem is they filled it all out wrong. So there you go. We can find some more opportunities. And on this one, gross scheduled income, they put in the monthly gross scheduled income. They should have put in the annual. Whenever you do gross scheduled, it should be an annualized. But hey, I'm not going to hit them too hard. They did the math right, at least. Here's where they start to make some serious mistakes that affect their client, the seller. Gross rent multiplier, they put in 15. Why they put in 15, I don't know, but I'm assuming that they thought the higher the gross rent multiplier, the better, because a real gross rent multiplier on this one is 14.23. My guess is that they got 14.23 as well, and then they rounded up because they thought higher was better. When in actuality, lower is better. So the listing agent actually made this property look worse by rounding up. Net operating income, actual and projected. This is where some serious flaws are being made. They're putting net operating income of $236. I'm guessing they meant per month. You should make it per year. And irregardless though, guys, nobody's going to buy this if the NOI is 236 or even 636 a month. How'd they get to those numbers? I don't know. My guess though, is they probably included a mortgage payment or something. Mortgage payment is not a part of your calculation to get to net operating income, because everyone's going to have different mortgages. Some people buy all cash. Some people buy with 0% down. Some buy with 10% down. Some buy with 25% down. It's not a financial calculation to get to your cap rate. Nonetheless, net operating income was all jacked up. And then the cap rate is way jacked up. The actual cap rate they put in is 23%. You're not going to find a 23% cap rate anywhere in the world. And they put in a projected cap rate of 18.4%. So what they're telling you is if you buy this property and you raise the rents, your return on investment is going to go down from a 23 to an 18. I don't know how they calculated that, to be quite honest. But when we did the math on it, we came to a 4.56% cap rate and a 5.5. So at least now we're looking at it eyes wide open, no more bogus numbers. But again, this is so important, guys, as buyers and sellers, to make sure you know what you're looking at or you hire someone who does. Here's another one where the realtor just didn't even fill in the financials down here in the bottom. The gross scheduled income projected, the gross rent multiplier, net operating income, expenses are all just blank. But guys, I'm telling you, that is a normal thing in my industry. And you might be wondering at this point, why are all the MLSs wrong? Why are all the 2 to 4 unit properties in the MLS? Why is the financials all jacked up? Why are they blank? Why are they just wrong? There's a very easy explanation for that. 2 to 4 unit property, guys, it's a very interesting beast in the world of real estate. You see, you got residential brokers and then you got commercial brokers. Residential brokers typically do single family homes. Makes sense. Single family homes, condos, townhomes. They help you buy that house with a beautiful kitchen and a nice bathroom. Commercial brokers do commercial real estate. In the world of commercial real estate, 2 to 4 units are not considered commercial real estate. 5 units and above, that's the dividing line on commercial real estate. And it has a lot to do with 2 things, loans and government regulation. The type of loan that you can put on a 2 to 4 unit property, same type of loans you can put on a single family home. You can put a VA loan on a 4-plex. You can put an FHA loan on a duplex. 30-year fixed rate conventional financing, same stuff you do to buy a home, you can put on a 2 to 4 unit property. You can't put it on a 5 unit, a 10 unit, a 20 unit, okay? 5 units and above, commercial real estate, that's what commercial brokers deal with. Now, the other difference is there's a lot more paperwork involved on a duplex than on a 20 unit apartment. That sounds weird, but it's because there's a lot more consumer protection disclosure paperwork on residential real estate 4 units and below than there is on commercial 5 units and above. So what am I getting at here? You got 2 worlds of real estate, commercial real estate, residential real estate. 2 to 4 units kind of swim in the middle. 2 to 4 unit has all the paperwork residential agents use, the type of loans that residential agents use, but not the financials. It's got the financials that commercial agents use. But commercial agents don't understand the paperwork involved with the 2 to 4 unit. They typically don't fully understand the loans involved with 2 to 4. So you've got this weird beast called a 2 to 4 unit property in which commercial agents aren't fully well versed and residential agents aren't fully well versed. Commercial agents know the financials on this inside out. They'll calculate the cap rate, NOI, GRM with their eyes closed, going backwards, because this is what they do. Residential agents know the paperwork behind this, but neither of these two groups know all three: the paperwork, the loans, and the financials. So that's why we find so many mistakes all the time in 2 to 4 unit properties, because it's residential agents for the most part brokering these deals, and they're not doing the financial calculations, or they're not doing them correctly. Now, don't let me make too much of a blanket statement. 90%, 10% of the agents out there know what they're doing. 10% of the agents out there are filling this stuff out correctly. And I see it, But it's those 90% that are filled out wrong that we often go after, because we find the mistakes that you can capitalize on. There's so much you guys can do with financials. And I'm not going to go too deep into one of these spreadsheets. But if you become one of our clients, you want us to put together like a real intense spreadsheet for you to look at a property based on what's your loan, what's your down payment, what's your interest rate. So what is your cash flow? What's your appreciation? What's your internal rate of return going to be? We can do that type of thing, of course, as well. So that's real estate finance 101 in 30 minutes or less. Let's get into zoning. Finance is really the biggest case study, but now let's dive into zoning, and then we'll have one more case study after this. So here's the cool thing about zoning, guys, and you'll notice one thing about me and something I learned in business school is if you want to be successful in life as a business or as an investor, you need to do this one thing. You need to find inefficiencies in the marketplace and capitalize on those inefficiencies. So I already showed you the inefficiency on real estate finance. There's all kinds of mistakes out there in the MLS, and realtors and sellers and buyers don't know what they're doing on 2 to 4s. If you do know what you're doing, you have the knowledge, you have the power, you'll do very well, and you'll make a lot on your investment. Same thing with zoning. So here's the unique opportunity with zoning and the inefficiency with it. In San Diego, the city of San Diego, in the 1970s, San Diego redid all of its zoning. Now in San Diego, our city used to have zoning like R1, R2, R3, R4, what a lot of people are familiar with. But in the 70s, San Diego got rid of all those zoning nomenclatures and created brand new, more detailed zoning. Things like RM-3-9, RS-1-2, CC-3-8. All zoning in San Diego is going to have 1 or 2 letters and then dash number. And those numbers are going to be designators that you can look up in chapter 12 or 13 of the San Diego Municipal Code and find out, what is that lot really zoned for? How many units? This all happened in the 1970s, 50 years ago. So here's the opportunity. Here's the unique thing. Well, the zoning was updated. That zoning update never made it to tax records, and it never made it to title property reports. How do we know that? Because you're looking at a title property report right now, and you see the zoning is R3, and that zoning doesn't exist in the city of San Diego, folks. So let's talk about this case study and how you can use this to your advantage. This property at 2650 2nd Avenue, the owner of it called me one day, an older gentleman and his wife, and they said, "Hey, Patrick, never met you before, and we'd like to pick your brain, but we're not going to hire you as our realtor." And I was like, "Well, that's cool, but why don't you want to hire me as your realtor?" And they said, "Because we've already got a realtor we've been working with for over 20 years. Helped us buy this place, in fact." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll still give you 10 minutes of my time." So I met with them 10, 20 minutes, and I knew that I would be able to show them something their other realtor hadn't shown them. And I said, "Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what do you think your zoning is?" And they're like, "Well, it's zoned R3. That's what our realtor told us." And we got 4 units on this property though. So we feel like we're kind of grandfathered in, and that's why the city's not coming after us. But bought this property 10 years ago. Our realtors told us it's zoned R3, and that's what we know. And I said, cool, let's look at what your zoning really is. So where do you find out what zoning really is, guys? Easy. You go to this website. This is an open source website. Anyone can go to it. My teenage daughter can go to this website. Super easy. So if you want to take a photo of it, do it now. But the San Diego Development Services and Zoning website, that's where you can find out the zoning to any property. So for this specific property, we found out that it's zoned RM-3-9. And I showed them this in real time as I was having my meeting with them. And I said, look, you're zoned RM-3-9. But look, guys, like all this crazy zoning in San Diego. Nowhere do you see R1, R2, R3, R4. In San Diego, it's going to be RM-3-9, RM-4-10, RS-1-7, CC-3-9. So what does all that stuff mean? Well, I can tell you RM is residential multifamily. And then these tack number, you look those up in the San Diego Municipal Code to see how many units you can build per square footage of lot size. RS-1-7. RS is always the first 2 letters of residential single family. CC, that's mixed use commercial. The cool thing for you to really be aware of is, look, this is a city block right here where my cursor is. And you can see on the same block, 2 neighbors. And on both of these, this had a single family home sitting on that lot right there, single family home. And it's zoned mixed use commercial. You can build tons of density on it where a single family home sat. And here's my client's property, RM-3-9. So your neighbor, you could have a single family home, your neighbor's got a single family home, and you could be zoned mixed use commercial. You don't even know it, or multifamily, and your neighbor can have completely different zoning. So I showed this client, I said, hey, look, your zone RM-3-9. They said, what does that mean? And I said, let's take a look. So this is where you want to go, folks. You want to go to Chapter 13, the San Diego Municipal Code for residential multifamily zoning. If it's commercial zoning, that's usually going to be found in Chapter 12. So in Chapter 13, purpose of RM zoning, multifamily, here it is, RM-3-9. Let's zoom it up. RM-3-9 permits a density of 1 dwelling unit for every 600 square feet of lot size. And you can see here how the zoning changes. RM-3-8, 1 dwelling unit for every 800 square feet. 3-7 for every 1,000 square feet. So I look at this guy and I'm like, look, you can build 1 dwelling unit for every 600 square feet of lot size. And sir, your lot is just over 4,000 square feet. So again, the guy looked at me with a blank stare and he said, so what does that mean? And I said, all right, let's do my favorite thing. Let's do some math. So you just take 4,013 square feet, divide it by 600 square feet, or 600 square feet per unit, and you get 6.68. So the guy looked at me and he's like, oh, cool. So does that mean I can build 6 units on this lot? And I said, no, it gets better. That means you can build 7 units. Because if the number ends in decimal 5 or greater in the city of San Diego, lucky you, you get to round up. So this gentleman's lot was zoned for 7 units. He had owned it for well over a decade. And he thought it was only zoned for 3. And he thought he got grandfathered in by having that 4th extra unit. So this is just a little secret, again, that most realtors don't even know how to look up that zoning. Most realtors will look up the title report or they'll look up the taxes, which are erroneous. They are wrong. If you ever see a property in San Diego, the city, and someone says it's zoned R3, they don't know what they're talking about. They say it's zoned R1, they don't know what it's talking about, start walking the other direction. It's going to be zoned something else. We find a lot of deals all the time with this type of situation. So this gentleman, he said, you know what, Patrick, I like you. No one's ever told me what my property was really zoned in over a decade of ownership. So I told you I'm not going to hire you, but you're hired. Guy hired me that day and we listed his property. And of course we sold it for top dollar, because in the MLS, I didn't talk about how beautiful the kitchen is or how useful the 2 bathrooms are, because no investor cares about how beautiful a kitchen is or how useful a bathroom is. Investors care about money. And investors care about value add. So for this listing, we put in everything an investor would want to see in the first 2 or 3 sentences. Mr. Buyer, Mr. Investors, this is how you add value. This is how you make money. Location, development potential, RM-3-9 zoning. You can build up to 7 units. Truth be told, you can probably build more than 7 units, especially since this sale. You all know how California and San Diego have really eased restrictions on density. You can have ADUs, you can have junior ADUs, you can do bonus density if you make some low income housing units. So you can probably have even more than 7 units on this. But because of this advertising that we did for this seller, we got multiple offers in the first week, and we ended up selling for more than the seller even wanted. In fact, the seller came back and said, Patrick, no wonder we received so many unsolicited lowball offers before we went to market. And those lowball offers were from sharks. They were from developers that know consumers don't understand zoning. They were from developers that know realtors, for the most part, don't understand zoning. And they were trying to take advantage of this elderly couple by getting them to offload the property for sale by owner. Is another thing. Whenever someone does a for sale by owner, I don't know if any of you have ever done it or you got friends, I guarantee you something. I will guarantee you this. If you do a for sale by owner, you will probably save 2.5% to 3% because you will not pay that commission. But you will probably lose another 5 to 10% because you don't understand real estate. I'm not saying you're not good at marketing or putting up a for sale sign, but most people, and guys, even most people in real estate don't understand real estate. They don't go and get master's degrees in it. This is important stuff to know if you're going to be buying a multifamily or even a single family, or especially if you're going to be selling, to make sure you don't leave money on the table like this couple almost did. All right, last case study. I'm passionate about that one because it was people really trying to take advantage of this elderly couple. They wanted to buy it really cheap. The elderly couple didn't know what the zoning was. We told them what the zoning was, and they sold it for more than they thought it was even worth. That's usually when we meet with someone, they end up selling it for more than they thought it was worth because we uncover something like that, a little gem. So case study number 3. I made a very bold statement. So let me continue with that statement I made at the beginning. I love 401ks. I love 403bs. I love IRAs. I've been investing in IRAs since I was in 5th grade, and I had a paper out, max out my 401k every year that I can. But I am here to tell you, as much as I love retirement accounts, real estate has way more tax advantages than retirement accounts ever will. All right. And when I learned this, when I was getting my graduate degree at UCLA, and I took a business and real estate taxation course, did pretty well in it. And the next year I got to be the TA, the teaching assistant for real estate and business taxation. And if there's one thing I learned in that course, it is that real estate is by far one of the best retirement vehicles out there because it has a lot more tax benefits, tax write-offs, tax deferrals, and even tax-free income than an IRA or a 401k ever will. So let's talk about case study number 3, 1031 exchange, which still exists even after these tax changes that might be coming. So I got a friend, his name is Brad, and he bought this duplex in North Park on Georgia Street, bought it years ago, back when we graduated the Naval Academy about a decade ago now, over a decade, geez, getting old. And he bought this duplex on Georgia Street for $750K. We sold it last summer, the summer before this last summer, he sold it in 2020 for 1.02 million. Now, in normal life, if you buy something for 750 and you sell it for 1.02 million, you got to pay taxes on all that gain. $250,000 gain, you got to pay taxes on it. When you buy stocks, when you buy bonds, when you buy artwork, when you buy anything. Even when you put money into a retirement account, you got to pay taxes on the money you're putting into it the year you put it in, of course, if it's a Roth. If you don't pay taxes on it and it's a traditional IRA or traditional 401k, you don't pay tax now, but you got to pay taxes when you pull it out. With real estate, thanks to something called a 1031 exchange, you can make hundreds of thousands. You can even make millions and millions and millions of dollars through appreciation. And then you can get access to the millions of dollars to buy more real estate without paying any taxes at all on your gains. So Brad made $250K, did a 1031 exchange, and he bought a fourplex in Imperial Beach for 1.05 million. So he made 250K, used that as his down payment for this 1.05 million fourplex. Now he doubled his units. He went from 2 units to 4 units, and that duplex was renting for $5,000 a month. Both units total $5,000 a month. All 4 units on the fourplex were getting $6,800 a month. So he came up only $30K in that purchase price, and he came up $1,800 a month, almost $20,000 a year, over $20,000 a year in annual revenue. And one really cool part of this story, guys, is when Brad first bought the duplex in the in like 2009, 2010, when he first bought it for $750K, he bought it with 0% out of pocket because he bought it with a VA loan. He's a military veteran, VA loan, bought it with no money down. He just held on to that property for a decade. He made $250,000 out of nothing because he never invested any of his own money. Now he owns a $1.05 million fourplex. It's worth more now because he bought that over a year ago. He's cash flowing money off of it. He has over $250,000 equity in it, and he never invested a penny of his own. That's how you can make money, especially tax-free money, in investment real estate. But it gets even better. It gets even better. So that's one way to avoid taxes with real estate, 1031 exchange. You used to be able to 1031 exchange anything. You could 1031 exchange artwork. You could 1031 exchange business equipment and real estate. Under the Donald Trump tax law, they got rid of the 1031 exchange for everything except real estate. Stuck around for real estate. But there's other advantages to real estate. A lot of you make money through a job, or maybe you want to go out there and buy a property that's going to cash flow. So you're thinking you want to buy real estate in Arizona or Oklahoma or my home state, North Dakota. Because real estate out there cash flows. Doesn't appreciate a lot in North Dakota, but it does cash flow. Or you could buy real estate in a place like San Diego, which has some cash flow, not a ton, but a lot of appreciation in a coastal, landlocked market like San Diego. So the question comes down to, do you want to make your money through cash flow or appreciation? And it comes down to this: do you want to pay a lot in taxes, or do you want to pay a little in taxes? Because cash flow is taxed into ordinary income, the upper tax rates here. And these are all about to change, guys. And we'll change them next year when they do. Or do you want to get taxed at a lower tax rate, long-term capital gains tax rate? If you own a property, goes up in value, it's worth $250,000 more than you bought it for, and then you sell it, you're going to get taxed, but at least you're not getting taxed at the ordinary income tax rate. You're going to get taxed as a long-term capital gain. When you pull money out of a 401k, when you're 60 years old and you're retired, or 70 years old and retired, when you pull that money out of 401k, you get taxed as ordinary income. When you pull money out of a property because you sold that property, you get taxed as a capital gains tax rate, which again is a much lower tax rate. Or you could do like I do, pull money out of property through a cash out refi, and then you don't pay any taxes on it. I've got a client, myself being one of them, who will pull hundreds of thousands of dollars out of real estate every year. Just keep pulling money out, and you don't pay any taxes on that money because it comes out through a cash out refi, and you get to keep the property. So it keeps appreciating for you. You keep renting it. Now back to that 1031 exchange. Benjamin Franklin, he's famous for a lot of things, including one quote. Benjamin Franklin said in his lifetime, 2 things are certain in America. 1 is death, and 2 is taxes. All right. Well, Ben Franklin was right about death. We're all going to die one day until technology gets even better. But he was wrong about one thing, at least in today's tax code. Taxes are not a certainty. There is a way to avoid taxes throughout your entire life and at your death. And that goes back to, again, real estate and the 1031 exchange. So let me show you how you avoid taxes altogether. Let's say you buy a $500,000 townhome in San Diego. You own it for a number of years, and then you sell it to 1031 into a $1 million duplex, just like Brad did. You own that for 5 to 10 years. And then you sell that, it's appreciated, tenants have paid down the mortgage. You sell that to buy a $1.5 million triplex. 5 more years go by, 10 years, you sell the triplex, you buy a fourplex. You get the picture. So you've been 1031 exchanging your whole life. Start out in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. And now you're in your 60s, your 70s, your 80s. And you're thinking, man, I want to retire. Or you're 59 and a half and you're going to retire. You can pull cash out of all these properties all along the way without paying any taxes. And you just pull the cash out by doing cash out refis. It's like a little cash cow. Okay. Now you get up to the age of 80, 85, 90, and you're thinking, I'm going to die soon. And I know that's morbid, but it's true. And you're thinking, before I die, I'm going to sell my property. No, don't do that. Because if you sell that final property that you own, that you 1031 exchange your way all the way up to 2.5 million, if you sell that the day before you die or any day before that, you're going to pay capital gains taxes on all of this gain, 500K to 2.5 million. That's $2 million worth of capital gains taxes, which at 20, soon to be 25%, you got $250,000 to $500,000 tax bill you're about to pay for every 100,000. However, if you wait until you die and then you leave this 5-unit apartment to your kids in your will, your kids inherit that and they can sell it the day after you die or a month later or a year later and not pay any taxes for any gain on that property up to 2.5 million. The value it was as of your date of death. And in the world of taxes, that's called a step up cost basis. So this is how generational wealth is created. And this is how generational wealth is passed without paying taxes on it. That's why too, Biden and the administration right now, they're looking at some of this stuff. And they're not eliminating it. It looks like they're not going to eliminate it, which is good. If you want to build generational wealth, but they are going to increase that long-term capital gains tax rate a little bit. But guys, this is an amazing way to build wealth and pass it on to your heirs, to your kids, to your descendants. You cannot do this with retirement accounts. Your retirement account is not necessarily going to get a step up cost basis. You leave that to your kids, they pull money out of it, they're paying taxes on that money they pull out. All right, we're going to get to Q&A. That was the last case study, but we'll close it out with, if I haven't made the point clear, there's a lot to learn about real estate. It's very in-depth, way more in-depth than I could cover in 60 minutes. I've been doing this for a decade, 2 master's degrees in it. I could never teach you everything in 60 minutes. I could never teach you everything in 60 days. But hopefully I've taught you enough to know that who you work with matters. It certainly does. And if it's not clear through like, hey, you got to understand real estate finance, you got to understand real estate zoning, you got to understand taxes. Let me make it clear in just a very visual way. This is a 4-plex that my team and I sold last year. And the pictures to the left were taken by a listing agent who we shall not name, not on my team. And the seller didn't like them. And they said, Patrick, we want to hire you and your team. The photos on the right were what our team produced. These photos on the left were on the MLS. As ugly as these photos are, they were on the MLS. It's what they use for marketing. The photos on the right, the exact same building. Which property would you buy? The one on the left, the one on the right. You can see just the lighting, the staging, the colors, everything's different. The photo on the left, I guarantee you guys, that was taken with a cell phone. Never hire a part-time realtor. They're probably going to take the photo with a cell phone. You want to hire a professional that does more than 2 deals a year. Again, the photo on the left, we're coming into Halloween, which I guess makes sense because it looks like a scary photo, a scary bathroom. I wouldn't want to walk into there, let alone buy it. Same bathroom here on right. The exact same bathroom, guys. Just better photo, better prepping. Which one would you buy? And then last but not least, if photos, 1,000 words per photo, just look at the listing again. The MLS on the left, I blacked out the guilty because I don't want to throw eggs at anyone. But look, guys, like they didn't fill out any of the financials down here on the bottom left. Everything was just blank. The listing remarks were horrible, and that's me being nice. All it says here is a nice, fully occupied 4-plex steady income. Like one sentence. What is none of this makes you or me want to buy it. Over here, this is the listing. We did fourplex property with cash flow income with one of the highest cap rates in San Diego County. And guys, we sold it way over list price, way over list price. We got 15 offers on it because we marketed it the way it should be marketed. We talked about the cap rate, talked about what investors care about, and we included all the financials as you see down here in the bottom left. The way that you see it on the right, that's the right way to do it. The way you see it on the left, that's the wrong way to do it. But you're going to see this all the time in real estate, especially 2 to 4 unit guys. That's why I say who you work with matters. This is my team. We're a lot stronger than this now. We're 16 people on the team. And, you know, if you work with us or if you don't work with us, I hope at the very least you took away some knowledge. And every time you learn, every time I learn, I always get humbled and I realize there's even more I got to learn. So hopefully after this 60-minute webinar, if anything, you learn there's more you got to learn. And you go out there and you continue to study real estate, study financials, study zoning, study everything you can study. And if you do want to work with us, just remember this one quote: in order to cross a finish line, you got to first cross the starting line. I work with a lot of clients. We work with hundreds of people every year. And I've learned that the only thing that holds people back is themselves. I've got so many folks out there I know that have been saying they're going to wait to buy, wait to buy, wait to buy. They've been saying that for 3 years, 5 years. What do you think they're saying now? They're saying, I wish I would have bought 3 years ago. I wish I would have bought 5 years ago. Don't wish for the past to be different. Make the present what you want the future to be. And don't hold yourself back. With that, I'll close it out. Here's my contact info. If any of you got invited here by one of my team members, great, reach out to them, keep working with them. If not, feel free to reach out to me. Again, the best way is patrick.kappel@compass.com. Also, I can email you this webinar. If you want a copy of the recording, shoot me an email. I'll hit reply and I'll attach a copy of the webinar to it. Or if you know anyone, family, friends, coworkers, anyone that you think could benefit from a recording of this webinar, shoot me an email, CC your friend, and I'll reply all, and I'll send the recording to them as well. I also want to invite you. Our October real estate and economic update is going to be held on Tuesday, October 26th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. That's a 90-minute webinar because there's a lot more information, a lot more data provided in that webinar. With that, we're right at the 60-minute point pretty much. So I'm going to take a look at the chat and see if we got any questions. If not, great. But if you do have a question, feel free to type it in the chat. I'll stick around for another minute or two here to see if there are questions. Other than that, thank you all for joining us. And Lewin, up in Los Angeles. Yeah, that's where I went to school. Great seeing you. And I got to say, before the pandemic, I would say like 5 to 10% of our clients were from out of area. Holy cow, someone's on from Greece. Alexander from Greece. Glad you're on. But yeah, before the pandemic, we had like 5 to 10% of our clients were out of area. Since the pandemic, and telework is now like a permanent thing for so many people, I would say 20 to 25% of our clients now moving to San Diego are coming from the Bay Area. They're coming from Los Angeles. They're coming from Orange County, coming from the Midwest. Everyone's moving into San Diego now because they can work here from a job in the Bay Area. They can work here from a job in Los Angeles. In San Diego, home prices, guys, don't believe the hype. San Diego home prices are cheap. And if you think San Diego homes are expensive, get in your car, go on Interstate 5 and drive north. Every city you hit, Orange County, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, Santa Monica, all the way up to the Bay Area, every city you hit, I guarantee you, up and down the 5, it's going to be more expensive than San Diego. San Diego is the cheapest coastal city right now in Southern California. That's why everyone's moving into San Diego. And we're getting a lot of people from the Midwest and the East Coast moving to San Diego because, hey, if you can telecommute, why would you not live in San Diego? So don't believe the hype that everyone's moving out. The only people moving out of San Diego, guys, for the most part, are the people that can't afford to buy here anyway. And those folks don't change home prices because they're not part of the market. The folks moving out don't change home prices. They're not part of the market, but it's the folks moving in, those highly paid six-figure individuals telecommuting in the San Diego sunshine because it's summertime in January. Those folks are going to continue to move our prices north. And we're going to see appreciation next year, just like we saw this year. With that, it's great to see everyone on. San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego State alumni, and even someone from Greece. It's the first time I've had someone from Europe dial in. Thank you all for joining. And again, shoot me an email if you want a copy of the recording. And we'll see you next time, hopefully on Tuesday, October 26th. Have a good evening. Bye.